Hello, and welcome to this Piney News special report on Nice Bus budget hearing today at 3 p.m. I was at the 3 p.m. hearing, and unfortunately, the outlook looks quite grim. Nice is completely just messed up on the presentation of this, and they keep adding routes to the list. They remove them, then they add them. Is this being done on purpose? Or is it just in pure incompetence? I don't know. But you'd never see that from the MTA, I guarantee that. So it has been presented now, and the whole PowerPoint presentation was messed up because they had the cuts on there, but then there were cuts that they were announcing that weren't on the PowerPoint presentation. I don't even know if that's even legal. They have to actually formally announce these cuts and make a clear example of what they're going to cut, and they did not do that properly today with the PowerPoint presentation. This is what it is going to come down to, though, folks. Unless Nassau County helps us, and I doubt they will, unless New York State helps us, and I doubt they will, we are going to be looking at all the following routes being eliminated as of mid-January 2016. That would be the N2, N8, the N17, the N14. I'm trying to remember them all off the top of my head because there are so many. The N46, the N50, the N51, the N73, N69, N73, N74, N80, and N81. Yes, the 81 and the 80 are both being eliminated. Even though they said they weren't, they changed it on their Facebook. It's unbelievable how sneaky they are. They said they weren't going to eliminate the N81, and then they just decided today, well, we are going to eliminate the N81. So you're leaving, they say, oh, it's 1% of our ridership. First of all, I think it's a little more than that, and a lot of these places you have no alternative. I mean, the college student, you're going to see basically in this, we're going to have some clips here from the hearing, and then there'll be another video on the full hearing. But these people aren't going to have a way to get to school. They're going to have to drop out. People aren't going to be able to get to work. I mean, and the taxi companies, they're going to be loving this, man. They're going to be loving it. They're going to be asking they're going to be gouging up these people. I think the taxi companies should come up and provide and step up and provide cheaper fares. But they're not going to do that. They're going to jack up their fares and rip people off, leaving people stranded. And all these cuts, as well as the cash fare hike and the Go Mobile fare hike, that's only, I think, $4.1 million in cuts. There's a $7.5 million deficit. $7.6 million, or maybe it's $7.5 million deficit for 2016. So in the second quarter, if the state doesn't increase the aid or the county doesn't increase the aid, there will be more cuts on top of this, and then we'll start seeing some of the routes with the busier routes get impacted. The system is in terrible, terrible shape, and the county doesn't care. They only care about rich people. This seems to be the consensus. The legislature, unfortunately, wasn't there, and it's just a shame what is happening. But this is really time for New York State and or Nassau County to step up to the plate and help us. Seriously, all right? Do people who have less money, are we not even counted as people? Is that the deal? Because we take the bus, we're not counted as human beings? Because that's the impression I'm getting, that I'm not a human being, and that all the other people who ride the bus aren't human beings, and that we are not welcome here in Nassau County. And they want to get rid of us, basically, so they can either so they can probably move more rich people in, or move more illegals in who aren't going to care about having to pay $20 for a cab, or they'll just drive without a license. Because let's face it, a lot of people coming here illegally, they can get a car, no license, they get a slap on the wrist. All right, if I went out and I drove a car without a license, I'd get arrested and put in jail. But they can drive around without a license, nothing's going to happen to them. So they're just going to get cars, and there'll be more unlicensed drivers on the streets. That's all. Putting more danger on the road. So this is a bad situation, and it's a situation that may get worse because NYFA has rejected the county budget, and NYFA is now telling Nassau County to make cuts, including $4.4 million in additional cuts to NICE. So on top of the $7.6 million, then it becomes a $12 million problem. The system is being brought to its knees right now. We need help. And I am sharing the full hearing video with a number of elected officials. And I mean, if they are human beings, they will help us. My gosh, you can find the money. I see Mercedes-Benz all over the place. You can find the money. As far as I'm concerned, raise taxes on the rich. All right, they can afford it. We cannot afford to have our bus taken away and having to pay 10 to 20 times the price for a taxi ride. All right, that is bullshit. All right, but again, this county doesn't care about the poor. They don't care. They want us gone. That seems to be the message we are getting here. And we just want more cars on the road. Absolutely disgusting. So anyway, next we have some highlights from the hearing. You'll see some of the speeches. Hopefully you'll watch the full video too as well. Of course, my speech will be in there on both videos. A couple of other excellent, there were a couple of other people out there that made some excellent speeches, including a friend of mine, actually, who made a great speech, and more or less saying the same things I'm saying. The fact is, Nassau just doesn't care about people who take the bus. They don't care about the bus system. They've made it evident time and time again, and we may eventually see, 10 years down the road, no bus system at all. That's exactly what they really, really want. So, you know, it is an outrage. I continue to make these videos in hopes that someone powerful will see what's going on and intervene and put a stop to this mess, this train wreck that is occurring here in Nassau County. And I will just end it with this before we go to the clips from today's hearing. 3 words for the people in the government, Nassau County, New York State, and the federal government. Please help us.
As of today, to maintain the current level of service just as it operates today would cost $131 million next year. The revenues that we can foresee as of today are only $123.5 million. So there's a $7.5 million difference between what we think the county can afford as using our best information today and what it would cost to maintain the current level of service. My suggestion is that it would be extremely optimistic to think that the legislature would completely solve that $7.5 million problem. Therefore, we think it makes sense this year, unlike previous years, not to wait. This is our recommendation, that we take 2 early steps to reduce the $7.5 million problem to a smaller problem, and then hope for the best in finding some additional revenues. The 2 steps that we propose to take and that we ask the committee to approve are to raise the cash fare from $250 to $275, which would mean it would catch up and the Go Mobile fare, which would catch it up with the MetroCard fare paid by nice bus riders and all cash and MetroCard fares paid by other MTA riders on the MTA and in Westchester County for that matter. They're all at $275 already and have been for some time. Secondly, we recommend that the changes be made to 9 of the smaller routes, and I'll show you those in just a minute, including some eliminations. If we do those things effective at the beginning of the year, we gain $4.1 million against the $7.5 million problem. There is a risk to doing that in that we would do some fairly drastic things to service, and there's a potential, it's not impossible, that the problem could be solved some other way. So that's the one risk. But there's the other risk, that of waiting until mid-year and having to cut twice as much in order to balance the budget. I think, my recommendation is that that's the greater risk and one to be avoided. So that's the basis of our recommendation. The potential solutions on the revenue side are the federal government, which is very unpromising right now. Congress has not been able to adopt a new transportation bill. They just did, I think, their 4th 2-week extension. The idea that Congress will solve our problem is extremely optimistic. Secondly, the second source is the county itself. And if you're following the media, as I have been, you recognize that the county has some major fiscal issues in front of it. And so the idea of relying on the county to solve a $7.5 million gap seems to me to be awfully optimistic also. Additionally, if you've been following the media, you've seen that there is some consideration now of reducing the county's share by another $4.5 million. That is not included in the $7.5 million that I just talked about. So if what the media, all I know is what I saw in Newsday, but if another $4.5 million comes out of the county's program, then that $7.5 million problem is a $12 million problem. So it makes all of the things we're saying today, that I'm saying and about to say, all the more drastic and all the more urgent. We've identified these 9 routes, and I'll describe in a moment how we identified them. 8 of the routes, these are all very small routes, 8 of the routes we believe should be eliminated altogether. And the reason we believe that is that one of the things we've done over the years is try to preserve every route that was here in 2012 when Nice Bus started in some form. And we've done that by putting them on extreme diets. Why those routes and why not some others? Here's an example. This compares one of our very large routes, the N6, with one of our very small routes, one scheduled for elimination here, or recommended for elimination, the N14. If I can just take you through the comparison, the N6, the big route, has an average of 46 passengers per trip. Now, there aren't 46 seats on a bus, so that means there are, on an average trip, there are people standing. But that's the average trip. In fact, during the heavy times of the day, there are people being passed up and required to wait for another bus or another bus. We've got 5-minute service in the peak hours, and even so, on the N6, we cannot get everybody on the first bus that comes along. Here's another way to look at this, a similar kind of way to look at this. On the left side, you see the 6 largest routes in the system. 15,000, 10,000, 7,000, 5,000 rides per day. 50% of all of our riders are on those, we have 48 routes. 50% of all riders are on those 6 routes. On the right side is the other end of the spectrum, the smallest routes. These are the routes that are recommended for elimination. And you can see 100 rides, 200 rides, 300 rides a day. So compare the few hundred rides a day to the 5,000, 7,000, 10,000, 15,000 rides on the big routes. And recall that on those big routes, where people are packed on very tightly, and we're forced to pass people, well, not occasionally, almost every day, forced to pass people up and require them to wait for the next bus or the bus after that. Logical questions, what does this mean for Able Ride? And the answer is nothing. We are not recommending a change in the Able Ride fare, nor would there be any change in the service area. Nice bus costs are still significantly lower than the MTAs. And I say that that's not a criticism of the MTA, just a recognition that the reason you brought in a private partner was to get the lowest cost operation that you could.
What are we doing to prevent this from happening in the past? Because as you said, this is the biggest deficit to date, but this is not the first deficit. Right. Even though we're going to be raising the fares and cutting the service potentially, which would only be $4.1 million, there's still about 3.4 left. What are we going to do in the long haul? Because this seems to be an issue every year. I mean, every year the prices on healthcare go up, every year the gas goes up, but this seems to be a surprise every time we do a budget. So I'm just wondering, what have we set, or what has NICE set forth in order to stop this kind of stuff from happening, so we're not sitting here a year from now talking about the same things?
Well, that's a great question, Mr. Watkins Lopez, and that is the question. What we have done so far is make sure that all of the elected officials, or many of the elected officials, are fully aware of this situation. This is a funding problem. It's not, operations can do something about it, but it's really a funding problem, and the funding decisions are made by people outside of Nice Bus.
$36 million. That's all that was asked of Nassau County to maintain quality bus service from the MTA. But instead, the county, one of the richest in the nation, decided it couldn't afford to pay for quality bus service from the MTA and brought us down the road that has led us to this day. These cuts make an already broken bus system that much worse. It is true, some of the routes on this list are extremely wasteful, and eliminating them would mean no great loss. However, some routes don't have alternatives, such as the N73, which wasn't mentioned in the presentation, but was on the website. I'm confused now. Without it, how exactly is one supposed to get to Wantagh from Hicksville or Levittown? Without going so far out of their way, walking would probably be faster. The N51 does not always run empty either. I was on it last Thursday in the afternoon, and 15 people were on the bus, college students. The N50 gets passengers between East Meadow and Belmore, so just how are they supposed to make that trip when that route is cut? I think it is important to preserve morning and afternoon service on the N50, N51, and N73. I am still surprised that the N21 still remains off this list, despite the fact that extremely few passengers use the N21 only portion of the route between Roslyn and Glen Cove. The N27 is much busier, yet the N21 gets just as many weekday runs. Under the MTA, the N27 ran half-hourly service all day on weekdays, and this needs to be restored at the expense of the N21. I will also add that the elimination of the N19 east of Sunrise Mall now leaves Babylon without any link to Nassau County on Sundays. You could consider extending the N72 to Babylon on Sundays, which would make more sense than the N19 because it carries more passengers and it is a vital link to Suffolk County transit routes operating in Babylon, with much higher ridership than the N19 because it serves Hempstead. I agree with the elimination of the N80 and keeping the N81. This was, again, the list changed, so now they're both being eliminated. But I would change the N81 route to serve a major shopping center, which currently sees no bus service at South Oyster Bay Road and Woodbury Road. This would bring in much more passengers on the bus and making it more economical to operate. I support raising the cash fare to $2.75. But I would not stop there. Currently, Able Ride service costs only $1 more than fixed county routes to ride, yet Able Ride loses much more money than fixed route service. Those passengers should pay a greater percentage of the cost of the service, and fares should be raised to $5, which is still a huge bargain. Now we find ourselves in a similar budget situation to 2011, and I have read the county is considering reducing $4.5 million in 2016 to NICE, which would surely be devastating. With all the breakdowns, buses with no working signs, and now major cuts on the table, it is clear that the people running this county and the state seem to care less about us. There is no excuse for such poor bus service on an ever more urbanizing island, and I'm tired of hearing the county cry broke when every third car I see on the road is a Mercedes. The people responsible for this mess of a bus system have destroyed the lives of countless people whose only crime was being poor or trying to do the right thing for the planet. Now, this is directed at the legislature, not you guys. But everyone, all the legislators should be ashamed of themselves. Everybody in the county government should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this to happen. Thank you for your time.
And we have a family health care center. In our family health care center, we run 7 services. We run a maternal service, a newborn service, a pediatric service, a respiratory service, a bariatric service, a geriatric service, and an internal medicine service. All of those people are scheduled appointments to come to our area. If the only option we have is the N16, which runs on Hempstead Avenue, and that one possibly is remaining just as it is, we then have a number of people who are choosing to take taxis, trying to get a lift, trying to have someone in the family or a neighbor give them the ride. The N16 picks up passengers on Hempstead and it passes Molloy College, who, by the way, has their own bus transportation to and from the Long Island Railroad. So a pregnant woman using the N16 bus and coming to our family health clinic, or a respiratory patient would be walking from Hempstead Avenue. They usually try to take a shortcut through Molloy College's parking lots. But Molloy doesn't really want anybody taking that shortcut, so to speak, and I can't blame them because walking through parking lots is a liability.
My name is Brett. I'm representing myself. I just have one question. On your website, it stated that you guys are thinking of eliminating the N73-74, right? I didn't see that on the PowerPoint. Is that still being eliminated?
That is. I apologize. I left that off the PowerPoint.
Okay. Because this speech was written in thinking that that's being eliminated. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's pretty sad that we all have to be here today, but I guess we can all thank Nassau County and Ed Mangano for that. This is the 5th NICE bus meeting I've been to. I've suggested ways for NICE to save money and keep their current routes, but nobody has gotten back to me on any occasion or taken any action, probably because I simply don't work for NICE. Kudos to anyone who made time to show up today, because I know this meeting was only announced like last week, and not a whole lot of advertising for it was done, except maybe a few posts on Facebook and an icon on their front page this week. I've studied and been a rider of Nassau's bus system since 2011. I've spoken to other riders, drivers, mechanics, and dispatchers. I was serious every time I made suggestions to NICE. I've used NICE bus off and on since 2012, and before that with the MTA. It used to be more often in the Long Island bus days, but when the MTA announced they were cutting ties with Nassau, I just knew this wasn't going to be good. Since then, the bus system has turned into a disaster. I'm sure you all know this, but it's Nassau County's fault we're here today, and it's probably their fault we'll be having this problem again in the future. The county just doesn't care about the bus system and doesn't want to pay their fair share to run it. That's why buses are breaking down, not showing up, and why NICE is slowly losing ridership. The MTA had reasonable demands when it came to running Long Island bus, and that thought is starting to come to fruition now. I used to rely on NICE to get around, but when the buses just simply stopped showing up or were excessively late, I just gave up and went the route of getting another car on the road to get to school, something Nassau County doesn't need. There's enough traffic on the road already, and the bus system that used to help that is just fading away. All those Orion CNG buses that once sounded beautifully and ran smoothly are now barely shifting gear or even starting up, and that's when they don't burn down on the side of the road during the summer. Never mind the fact that half the destination signs don't work correctly. I really do feel bad for the fresh New Flyer buses that are being sent on the road now, because at the rate we're headed, we'll be seeing frequent breakdowns of them starting next year. You have to realize who we're complaining to, the wrong people. Most of this committee was appointed by Mangano, and none of them have the power to change the county budget. And chances are these cuts are going to be approved anyway, because NICE really has no other choice. I don't even ride the bus anymore, and yet I'm here because it's despicable what's happening to this system. The routes that are planned to be cut run throughout the county. Although NICE states on their website that this will only affect 1% of riders, it does affect the larger coverage of the system as a whole. I'm not against the fare hike or cutting the N14 and the N62, because those are huge money savers right there. The N17 was NICE's failed idea to implement back into the system in the first place, and just represents another one of the administration's brilliant ideas that brought close to no additional ridership in the system. The N6 still hasn't been gotten right. That route alone has cost a good chunk of ridership, and is still losing ridership. Southern and southeastern Nassau will feel the most of these cuts, with the exception of the N2 and
Please
N8.
collect your thoughts and try to summarize it. Take another 22 seconds.
Money could have easily been saved from making the N8081 and the 7374 bi-hourly instead of hourly, or having the N87 an extension of the 7374 during the summer. But that seems to be another idea of mine that went in one ear and out the other. All I can say is, this is a county that clearly caters towards the wealthy, and an overwhelming majority of the residents simply don't need the bus system. That's why this is happening. Less than 100,000 is nothing to the county compared to the 1.35 million population. All I can say is good luck to everyone who relies on NICE, because if you keep relying on it, you're going to need it. And I really hope someone wakes up and sees what's being destroyed here. Everything I and other enthusiasts of the system predicted is coming true. Sorry this couldn't be nicer, but this is that serious. Thank you.
Sorry. It'll be a long way for me to walk on Meacham Avenue for me to get the express. So what would you guys do for this many of us who come from Dutch Broadway and Meacham, for us to take the N6 to go to work and go to school? And I also on the weekends work at Green Acres Mall for me to pay for school. So how would I be able to get to work and to school without the N8 and the N2?
Make this quick. 75% of Long Islanders commute to work alone in a car, and most of the people I know would like to be more environmentally friendly and can't find a good way to do it.
I need to get to doctors, and they already canceled half the 46 buses. There's no buses between 9:15 in the morning and 2:45 in the afternoon. They got rid of them all. They weren't supposed to do that. Instead of being called nice, it should be called not nice. And also not clean.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have seen the insides of these buses, but they're germ factories.
Yep.
They should concentrate on cleaning the buses and keeping the routes, not canceling. There's healthcare workers that have to take care of people, and they can't get to them. The taxi wanted to charge me $20 to come here today. They're wetting their pants over this. And you got the 51, which is also near my house. It goes to Nassau Community College, which I'm also a student. The kids can't get to school. People who have to take the train into Manhattan, 46 and the 51, go to the train station. How are they going to get to the train? I mean, Mr. Mangano recommended this. He assured us it was going to work, and it's not working. He needs to step up and fix it.
My name is Christopher Muller. I'm representing Briarcliffe College, specifically about the N81 and N80 bus. I attended the Nassau County Legislative meeting on September 21st, 2015. Talked about the impact, and this time I actually brought two of my students with me. This is Anita Gibay. She's a healthcare administration student, and Eileen McCarthy, a business student. Approximately 60% of our students rely on public transportation to get to and from school. Our students are majors in dental hygiene, criminal justice, legal studies, healthcare administration, business, accounting, and graphic design. Do you want to tell Anita and Eileen, who both rely on public transportation every single day, they're trying to make a better life for themselves, and if this bus is cut, they may have to withdraw from college. This is going to have a huge impact on them. I beg you and implore you to please do not do this to these two lovely ladies.
Hi, I'm Anita. I used to work in the same college, and as well as a student. While I was working there, if this had happened, that means I would lose my job and education. All I was doing is just trying to get a better life for myself. Please do not cut the bus. And also, we have a signed petition from all the students that are taking the bus that can't be here. Who can I give this to, please?
My name is Ed McCarthy. I'm a business marketing student at Briarcliffe College, and if then 81 goes, I lose going to school and lose my job at the school too. So I don't want the 81 to go either.
Thank you.
I only support 20% free ride. If you could implement a bus and ambulance service.
Address the issue about I haven't heard anything about the security problems for the buses here, for drivers and people over there from the town, like from Westbury to Roosevelt Field and to Baldwin Harbor on the N35 bus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what we just heard was that the bus routes that are in question here are very important to somebody, and I want to make it clear that we know that. I hope it didn't sound as if we were saying these bus routes don't matter because they're inefficient. They are vital to the people who do use them.